I had been obsessed with TikTok for months, spending late nights scrolling, experimenting with trends, and brainstorming content that felt different, something that would actually stick. I wasn't trying to be famous, I just loved creating. And I had finally hit on an idea that I thought could go viral. It wasn't flashy or overdone. It was this quirky, relatable mini-sketch that I imagined would resonate with people because it captured something everyone felt but never admitted. I jotted the idea down in my notes, drafted a rough script, and even filmed a few test clips just to see if it flowed. I never posted it, mostly because I was nervous, and also because I wanted to polish it, add my personal twist, and make sure it was perfect before anyone saw it. My best friend, Madison, had always been a little more outgoing on social media than I was. She had this effortless charm that made people instantly like her, and she was always posting trendy stuff that got quick likes and comments. We often shared our TikTok ideas, joked about making viral videos together, or critiqued each other's content, but I had never really thought she'd take one of my ideas seriously enough to actually make it. That all changed one Friday night, when she texted me, saying she'd just uploaded a new TikTok and that I had to see it. I clicked on it without much thought, expecting some funny, random video that would make me laugh. But as soon as it started, my stomach dropped. The concept, the jokes, the timing, even some of the small details I had written in my notes, it was all there, but polished, acted out perfectly, and with Madison's signature style that made it irresistible. It had already gotten thousands of views in less than an hour. I stared at my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen because I didn't know if I wanted to like it, comment, or just pretend I hadn't seen it. I sent her a quick message, "Wow, this is so good," trying to mask the weird mix of pride and jealousy I felt. She replied almost instantly with a laughing emoji and, "Right? I thought of it yesterday, it just came to me." Her tone was light, casual, and completely convincing, and for a moment I wanted to believe her. But deep down, I knew every little nuance in that video, down to the exact punchline and the weird prop placement. It was impossible for her to have come up with it independently. I tried to brush it off, told myself maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe I had mentioned it in passing and she hadn't remembered, but then the comments started rolling in, thousands of them, people tagging her in memes, reposting clips, calling her a genius, and offering collaborations. I watched frozen as my own idea exploded on someone else's account while mine sat untouched, just a draft in my notes. The next day, I saw her post another video that was kind of similar to something I had been planning for the next week. I didn't want to overreact, but I couldn't ignore it either. I decided to confront her gently, so I texted, "Hey, can we talk about your TikTok yesterday? I feel like it was really similar to something I had been working on." She didn't reply immediately, and when she finally did, it was a mix of surprise and defensiveness. "Wait, I honestly didn't know you were going to post that. I just thought of it on the spot." I tried to believe her, really. I did, but the seed of doubt was planted. Over the next few days, she continued posting, each video increasingly reflecting ideas I had sketched or even half-filmed. I was stuck in this weird place of admiration and frustration, unsure if I should confront her more aggressively or just step back and let it slide. My friends started noticing too. They'd message me privately, saying things like, "Wow, that's literally your style. Did Madison tell you she's doing this?" And I'd nod, smile, and force myself to laugh it off. One evening, I decided to look deeper. I opened my old TikTok drafts to make sure I wasn't imagining things, comparing every prop, line, and timing with her uploads. The match was uncanny, and the more I compared, the angrier I felt. It wasn't just inspiration. It was almost like she had copied my notes verbatim, adding only her personality and a better camera angle. I considered calling her out publicly, but a small anxious voice in my head warned me that might backfire. And besides, she had a lot more followers than I did. I was trapped in this limbo, watching my ideas take off without me, feeling invisible and powerless. And the worst part was that I didn't even know why she was doing it. Was it envy? Or did she just see me as a source of ideas? I needed to figure it out, and I knew the answer wasn't going to come easy. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with what to do next. I kept replaying Madison's videos over and over, analyzing every little detail, trying to find some clue that would prove whether this was intentional or just a bizarre coincidence. I even went back to old messages, remembering every time I casually mentioned a funny idea or sketched something in my notes while we hung out. The realization hit me like a punch. I had been way too open with her. Every time I shared a new thought, I assumed she'd just listen, laugh, and move on. I never imagined she could take something I was still incubating and turn it into her own viral success. The next morning, I tried to focus on my own content, but it was impossible. My creativity felt paralyzed because every new concept I came up with, I had to check whether she could twist it into another viral hit. Then something strange happened. One of her videos, the latest one, had a comment that stopped me cold. It said, "This is amazing. You always have the best ideas, even better than Emily's." My stomach dropped. Someone else was noticing the same pattern I had been seeing, and the mention of Emily hit a nerve because that was actually my real account name. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through more comments, people tagging friends, saying, "This is exactly like what Emily was planning." My heart was pounding. How had they known? I didn't even post my idea, yet somehow it had leaked. I tried to reach Madison casually that day, texting, "Hey, we need to talk. Can we meet up?" She responded quickly, cheerful as ever. "Sure. Lunch today?" I agreed, telling myself I would stay calm, rational, and get answers without starting a fight. When we met, she smiled like nothing was wrong, ordered a latte, and immediately launched into talking about her latest TikTok trends. I had to remind myself to breathe. Finally, I said, "Madison, I need to be honest. I've noticed a lot of your recent videos are really similar to my ideas. Some of the details, the timing, even the props. I'm not imagining this." She tilted her head, acting thoughtful, and then smiled, saying, "Wow, I really didn't notice that. I guess great minds think alike?" My chest tightened. I wanted to believe her, but everything inside me screamed that this was more than coincidence. "Madison, I'm serious. These are my ideas. Some of them aren't even public yet," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She laughed lightly, like she was brushing it off. "You're overthinking it. I just make videos. It's all for fun." The words felt like a slap in the face. I didn't respond, just sat there, sipping my latte and watching her scroll through her phone. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I realized that confronting her head-on wasn't going to work because she was too good at pretending. Over the next week, things got worse. She posted another video that was unmistakably inspired by a sketch I had written down in my notebook 2 days earlier. This time, I had clear evidence, timestamps on my notes, screenshots, even a voice memo where I rehearsed the lines. I felt trapped, like I was watching my own creativity being siphoned off in real time, and the jealousy was eating me alive. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. Madison called me, sounding nervous, a tone I had never heard before. She said, "Hey, can we talk? It's about the videos." My heart raced. Was this finally the moment of truth? Did she feel guilty? I agreed to meet her the next day, unsure of what to expect. When I walked into the cafe, she was already there, fidgeting with her bracelet, avoiding my eyes. I could tell she was about to say something important, but I had no idea how it would change everything. Then she blurted out, "I know it looks bad, and I didn't mean to, but there's something you need to know." My stomach dropped, and I felt a mix of dread and curiosity. I braced myself thinking she would confess to copying me intentionally, but what came next made me freeze. Madison took a deep breath, finally meeting my eyes, and whispered, "I didn't get the ideas from you. Someone else did." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely steady. She leaned in, glancing around the cafe like she didn't want anyone overhearing, and said, I found them online. Someone sent them to me. Your ideas. My mind went blank. Someone sent them to you? Who? She hesitated, biting her lip. I don't know. It was anonymous. There was this link, a folder, with all these scripts and notes for TikTok ideas, and your name was attached to some of them. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just assumed they were trends that people were sharing. I sat there, feeling my chest tighten. So you're saying, you just happened to post my exact ideas without realizing they were mine? Madison nodded, looking genuinely worried. I didn't know. I swear, I thought they were just popular scripts floating around. I didn't check names closely, and I didn't know it would blow up like this. I wanted to scream, but something didn't sit right. How convenient that every viral idea that had been mine ended up in her hands. I opened my notebook and showed her timestamps and voice memos, explaining that these were ideas I had never shared publicly. Madison's face turned pale as she realized the scope of what had happened. Oh, wow, I didn't realize it was that specific, she said quietly. I stared at her, feeling a mix of relief and anger. Part of me wanted to believe her innocence, but the other part knew this couldn't be just an accident. So who sent you the folder? I asked again, pressing gently but firmly. She shook her head. I don't know. It came in an email. There was no sender, just the file. I thought it was a fan thing, like people sharing ideas for inspiration. My mind raced. Someone had deliberately copied my ideas, and somehow Madison had been set up as the face of the content. That meant this wasn't just about TikTok, it was bigger, more calculated. I tried to wrap my head around it. Over the next few days, I started investigating quietly, checking email headers, looking for clues in the folder, trying to figure out who could have done this. Every lead felt like a dead end until I noticed a pattern. The file's metadata included a name I recognized, and it wasn't Madison. My blood ran cold as the realization hit me. Someone close to me had access to my notes, someone who knew both me and Madison, and had sent the ideas in a way that made it look like a coincidence. I felt betrayed, exposed, and more than a little paranoid. I confronted Madison again, explaining the metadata and how it clearly pointed to someone I knew. She was shocked, her hands trembling slightly. Oh my God, you think it's someone we both know? I nodded, yes. Someone who knew what I was working on and wanted to sabotage me or use it for themselves without taking the risk directly. Suddenly, everything made sense. The timing of the uploads, the way the videos seemed too polished for someone just borrowing inspiration, and the eerie precision of each idea being executed exactly how I imagined it. My mind flashed to my roommate, Claire. She had access to my notebooks, always joked about how lazy Madison was, and had a sly sense of humor that often crossed lines. Could it be her? I didn't want to accuse without proof, but I knew I had to dig deeper. That night, I stayed up late, reviewing security settings, checking drafts, and tracing every possible leak. Then I noticed a tiny, almost invisible watermark in the folder, a clue I had overlooked before. It was something Claire used in her digital files, a signature she probably thought no one would ever notice. My heart pounded as I realized the truth. She had been feeding Madison my ideas while making it look like a coincidence. She had orchestrated the whole thing, ensuring that my creativity exploded on someone else's account while I was left in the dark. The betrayal hit harder than I ever imagined. I felt a mix of anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of vindication because now I finally knew the culprit. But there was one problem: I needed proof before I confronted her. One misstep, and she could deny everything. Over the next 2 days, I quietly collected screenshots, metadata, timestamps, and the email headers. Every piece of evidence pointed to Claire, and with it, I felt both relief and dread because exposing her meant shaking the foundation of my own social circle. When I finally had everything together, I called Madison, who had been supportive and shocked by the revelation, and we devised a plan to confront Claire carefully, without letting her cover her tracks. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted acknowledgement and an explanation. Little did I know that what Claire had done was even more complicated than I imagined, and that revealing the truth would uncover secrets about my so-called friend Madison that I never expected. I arranged to meet Claire at a quiet cafe, one where I knew we wouldn't run into anyone familiar. My hands were shaking as I slid the laptop across the table, opening the folder with all the evidence neatly organized: screenshots, timestamps, email headers, and the metadata that directly linked her to the leaked ideas. Claire's eyes widened the moment she saw it, and for a second, I thought she might laugh it off, but instead, there was a flash of panic, like she realized the jig was up. I tried to stay calm, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. Claire, I know everything. You've been sending my ideas to Madison and making it look like a coincidence. She blinked rapidly, opening her mouth to speak but closing it again, fumbling for some excuse. I didn't think it would go this far, she finally stammered. I just thought it would be funny, and I wanted Madison to get lucky with it. I felt my chest tighten, a mix of disbelief and anger. Funny? You call stealing my creativity, manipulating my friend, and making me feel invisible funny? She looked down, ashamed. I didn't realize how serious it would get. I didn't think you'd notice. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process everything. I had expected some denial or deflection, but this confession, half apology, half excuse, made my stomach twist. Do you understand what you've done? These were my ideas, my work, and you turned them into someone else's success for what? A joke? Claire's eyes filled with tears and she muttered, I just wanted to see if it could happen. I didn't think it would hurt you. I wanted to scream, but instead, I forced myself to stay collected. I had all the evidence I needed, and I realized that exposing her wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my voice. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was Madison. She had sent a message saying, "You need to see this. It's complicated." I opened the link she sent, and my jaw dropped. It was a series of emails and screenshots that I hadn't seen before. Claire hadn't acted alone. Madison had actually received similar anonymous tips before posting some of my ideas, but she had ignored the warnings because she thought they were coincidences. The plot thickened. Claire had set the plan in motion, but Madison had unknowingly played a bigger role than she realized. Some of the emails hinted that Claire had created fake social media accounts, monitoring both my drafts and Madison's uploads, guiding the process to ensure my ideas got maximum exposure while keeping herself hidden. My mind reeled. I had trusted both of them, sharing ideas and scripts, and somehow my entire creative world had been manipulated without me noticing. I stared at Claire, who was now openly crying, and then at Madison, who was nervously waiting for my call. I realized the situation was more tangled than I ever imagined. Madison might be innocent in intent, but she had benefited, and Claire had masterminded a scheme that involved both of us without our full awareness. I had to make a choice. I could confront them both publicly, post the evidence, and potentially ruin friendships forever. Or I could confront them privately and demand acknowledgement, control over my content, and assurance that this would never happen again. I took a deep breath and decided the latter. I called Madison first, telling her everything I had discovered about Claire's manipulation and her accidental role. Madison was horrified, apologizing repeatedly, explaining that she genuinely hadn't realized the extent of what was happening. We planned a meeting with Claire together, ensuring that this time, she couldn't wiggle her way out. When we all met, Claire tried to minimize her actions, but with Madison and me there, laying out every piece of evidence, she finally broke down completely. What she revealed next was even more shocking. Claire confessed that she hadn't just wanted to make Madison successful, she had wanted to test me. She had always envied my creativity, my drive, and even my friendship, and this entire scheme was her twisted way of proving that she could outsmart me without me noticing. She had underestimated the consequences, the fallout, and how it would affect Madison. My head was spinning. Betrayal, jealousy, manipulation, all of it intertwined in ways I hadn't even imagined. I realized that while Madison had been a victim of circumstance, Claire had orchestrated everything intentionally, and I had been completely blind to her motives. Sitting there, listening to Claire confess, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. Finally, the truth was out in the open, and the tangled web of lies and manipulation could no longer control me. I looked at Madison, who was visibly shaken, tears in her eyes, and realized that while she had benefited from my stolen ideas, she wasn't malicious. She had just been caught in someone else's scheme. I turned back to Claire, my voice calm but firm. Do you understand what you've done? You've not only betrayed me, but you've manipulated my friend, exploited my creativity, and made me question everything I've worked for. She nodded, sobbing. I know. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought it would just be a little joke. I didn't think it would hurt anyone this much. I took a deep breath. I didn't want to escalate this into public humiliation. I wanted accountability, acknowledgement, and boundaries. You're going to undo this, I said. You will delete any copies of my ideas you've shared, stop sending things to anyone else, and you will never interfere with my work again. And Madison, if you post anything I create without my permission, I need you to stop immediately. Both of them nodded, their faces pale. For the first time in days, I felt like the weight on my chest was lifting. I realized that confrontation was cathartic, even if the damage had already been done. Madison apologized again, promising she would be more careful and that she genuinely had not understood the scope of what Claire had been doing. Claire, on the other hand, was apologetic but shaken. I could see the guilt in her eyes, and though I didn't forgive her completely, I knew she understood the consequences. After that meeting, I took a few days off social media to regroup. I needed to focus on myself, my ideas, and my content without worrying about leaks or sabotage. Surprisingly, this break allowed me to reflect, and I realized that the stress and tension had been stifling my creativity. Ideas that had been blocked for weeks suddenly flowed freely, and I felt inspired again. 1 week later, I posted a TikTok using the original idea that had started all of this. I polished it, added my personal touches, and made sure it carried my authentic voice. Within hours, the video started getting traction. It wasn't an instant viral hit like Madison's uploads had been, but it was growing steadily, and the comments were overwhelmingly positive. People were praising the humor, originality, and relatability, and for the first time, I felt the satisfaction of seeing my work succeed on my own terms. What surprised me even more was that Madison reached out privately, not to compete, but to genuinely support me. She admitted she had learned a lot from the situation and promised to amplify my future content, not co-opt it. I realized that friendships could survive manipulation and misunderstanding, but only if there was honesty, accountability, and effort to rebuild trust. As for Claire, I decided to cut ties. I couldn't fully forgive her for the deliberate betrayal, and I needed distance to protect my work and my peace of mind. The experience left me more cautious, more confident, and surprisingly stronger. I learned that creativity is not just about having ideas, but also about protecting them, trusting the right people, and knowing when to assert yourself. I also realized that sometimes betrayal can teach you about your own resilience in ways you never expected. A few weeks later, life started to feel normal again. I was posting my own content without fear, and the growth was steady, organic, and completely mine. I had learned to keep certain ideas private until I was ready to release them, and I felt more in control than ever. Madison and I had rebuilt our friendship, though it was different now, stronger in honesty, more cautious, but genuinely supportive. We even started brainstorming new content together, with clear boundaries, and it was surprisingly fun collaborating without the tension that had haunted us for months. But just when I thought the chapter with Claire was closed, something unexpected happened. One evening, I received a direct message on TikTok from an anonymous account. It was simple, just a single screenshot of an email with the subject line, "You can't hide your creativity forever." My heart skipped a beat. The email was months old, but it was from Claire. Someone had saved it and sent it anonymously, and the tone was chillingly smug. It wasn't threatening in the usual sense, but it implied that she was still watching, still aware of what I was doing. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking, realizing that even though I had confronted her and moved on, some part of her obsession with my work had lingered. I blocked the account immediately, but the unease stayed. That night, I thought about everything I had been through: the betrayal, the manipulation, the stolen ideas, the confrontation, and finally reclaiming my own voice. I realized that while the story wasn't over in the sense of life being predictable, I had learned something crucial: creativity is precious, but trust is even more delicate. You can protect your ideas, confront deceit, and even rebuild relationships, but you can never fully control how others think or act. In the end, I chose to focus on what I could control: my own content, my own growth, and my own integrity. And as my TikTok continued to gain momentum, I felt a sense of satisfaction deeper than any viral hit could ever give me. I had proven to myself that my ideas had value, that I could succeed on my own terms, and that even when betrayal struck, resilience and clarity could turn chaos into a lesson worth learning. And though I would always keep an eye out, wary of who might be lurking in the shadows, I finally felt free to create again, and that freedom was better than going viral ever could be.